I was under the chandeliers at the Harbor Club checking place cards and reminding the volunteer quartet to tune. I like things orderly. Wind off the lake slid through the open door, smelling faintly of metal and water. Then the family group text lit my screen. We need space from you. Do not contact us. A voice note followed, smooth and cold. You are an allowance with shoes. I looked at my reflection in the etched glass and felt my face go still. I typed, of course, I will step away. Beginning tonight, I will remove my support. I called my attorney. As backup trustee, I began a formal review of the family trust. We drafted the notices that night. The custodian would place a precautionary hold on discretionary payouts in the coming days. What I could do immediately, I did. I stopped my personal transfers that floated phones, club dues, and weekend trips. By midnight, my own travel kitty was at zero and unpaid notices would route back to the primary trustee where they belong. At sunrise, my sibling called 13 times. I sent one sentence, you asked for distance, I am honoring it. You will see why everything changed when a hot mic from that same gala carried a different truth into living rooms across town. If your family demanded distance while leaning on your help, where would you draw the first line? Tell me where you are listening from and what you would do. Follow so you do not miss the reckoning that began with one rude toast and a stray recording. My name is Alex. In my family, I was the responsible one. In their private dictionary, that meant the place where bills go to be solved. In this Great Lakes city with brick streets, gull calls, and Friday fish fry. I keep the operations steady at a regional solar cooperative. I write schedules, chase grants, and stand on flat roofs with a hard hat while kites of gulls circle. On paper, I am also the backup trustee of a legacy trust my grandparent built by saving small and steady. A publisher still sends modest royalties for a field guide they wrote. A green tech startup granted me a thin slice of equity when I helped land pilot projects at churches and senior centers. There is even a deeded strip of river frontage leased to the rowers for their dock. None of this felt flashy. It felt like care-quiet structures meant to hold people upright. Rowan, an older relative, styled himself our money-mind public charm, private contempt. He liked to say, some of us make decisions, some of us make errands. In public, he praised generosity. In private, he trimmed it into a hook. I learned that some people treat gratitude like weakness. They take then call you controlling for asking where the taking goes. The gala was not the community foundation's event. It was the Harbor Club's charitable circle, a private evening under borrowed lights. I had finished the unglamorous work checking the donor slideshow, confirming the vegetarian list, nudging a table 2 inches so a walker could pass without bumping a chair when the "we need space" text and that voice note arrived. Habit said, smooth it over. Something older in me chose clarity. With counsel, I initiated the trust review properly. Filings would go out first thing on the next business day. What belonged to me, I shut off at once. Phone lines I paid for autopays I had set just for now, and a little side fund I had been topping up out of equal parts love and denial. It is odd to watch a story turn while a room does not move. The quartet kept tuning, the wind kept lifting the gauze curtains, laughter from the back drifted forward like lazy surf. But a simple sentence can pull a thread until daylight shows through the cloth. My sibling Sky had built a small life online, posting wellness tips and soft light through cafe windows. 2 weeks after an emergency rent plea, there would be a brunch photo with a caption about manifesting plenty. I do not begrudge pleasure, I do question arithmetic. Tonight the arithmetic would stand on its own feet. Sage, my friend with the memory of a careful librarian and the calm of a good radio voice, ran the check-in table. For years, Sage listened without eye-rolling while I explained the dentist bill here, the car repair there, the lease top-up that would end next month. You give because you love, Sage would say. They take because they can. Those are different verbs. I nodded, then sent another transfer. Seasons change, habits resist. Casey, the neighbor you want. When the power goes out, had packed the event kit, gaffer tape, safety pins, a sleeve of water bottles, and a tote. Casey asks steady questions like, what would happen if you did not fix it this time, and what if the story you are telling yourself is already over? Oldest child souls believe the bridge is sturdy because they are under it. That was me, whether or not birth order agreed. Rowan drifted through the room with a soft authority smile, offering compliments that were not. Some people confuse managing events with owning them, he murmured near the stage, glancing at me as if we shared a joke. A volunteer laughed. I did not. That line was a red flag I had folded neatly for years. Tonight I left it hanging where everyone could see the color. River, my tech-savvy cousin, hovered by the AV booth. While dragging the sponsor slideshow into place, River brushed past a cloud folder labeled Estate. For a breath, a thumbnail flashed on the big screen, a chart and a list that did not belong to donor applause. It vanished, replaced by smiling sponsors. Rooms remember what they glimpse, especially when a microphone will soon betray a whisper. I would love to tell you I confronted Rowan under the chandeliers with a speech that rattled crystal. That is not how this went. Quiet devastation is stronger than loud drama. I finished the table numbers, thanked the quartet, and watched the lake stretch out like hammered pewter. Then I made the kind of choice that feels like stepping out of a heavy coat you did not know was pressing on your ribs. The first phone lines I ever covered were added during a job loss that lingered. The first utility autopay was for now and learned my name. The first authorized user on my card arrived with a promise that did not survive a season. If love were a ledger, it would not look like those statements. Love is help with an end date. Subsidy is help with an appetite. You cannot fix an appetite by feeding it quietly. It only learns that you are a silent kitchen. By dessert, council had confirmed our next steps. We would file properly and the custodian would act no theater, just process. On the balcony, a halyard clicked against a mast and gulls laughed the way gulls do. I scrolled past Sky's 13 missed calls and typed the same sentence again, slow enough to hear it in my own head. You asked for distance. I am honoring it. Then I set the phone face down and went back in to thank the volunteers for staying late. When a night like that ends, there's usually one small act that proves whether you have changed or only talked about changing. Mine was simple. I did not gather jackets. I did not track down the guests who left without their favors. I did not swing by the AV booth to apologize for a thing I did not do. I stood by the doors and let the room pass like a river around a piling. I thought of Pip, the neighbor child I read with on Saturdays at the library who asks better questions than most adults. Pip would ask, "Are you safe now?" Not yet. Safer than an hour ago. Before we move on, I want your take. In a moment like this, where would you set your first boundary, phones, utilities, or a short letter through an attorney? Share your choice and why. Your reasons may steady someone listening on their evening walk. By morning, the lake looked like hammered pewter. Gulls hopped the seawall as if they had shifts to cover. I brewed drip coffee and tried a bad exercise that can still be useful list what I had paid across the years. A transmission that became a tradition. A dentist bill that would be next month. A lease I co-signed for 1 year that learned my name. The pen reached the margin before the cup reached half. In this Great Lakes town, people keep shoeboxes of receipts under the sink and funeral programs by the landline. Friday means fish fry. August carries fry bread at the powwow. Windows hold sun catchers that throw small rainbows over the sink. Wind scrubs the air. It does not scrub habit. My habit was simple. I solve things. There is a difference between being capable and being appointed. I had been appointed. Sage arrived with bagels and that librarian patience. We ate at the small table by the window. When was the last time someone asked how you are without adding a request, Sage asked. I searched too long. I do not remember. And the last time you said no and the sky stayed put. Hard to test when the answer has been yes. Then test it today, Sage said. Not from anger, from order. Rowan did not wait to reassert control. A voice note dropped cool and deliberate. You have frightened people with dramatic gestures. Undo what you did. Do not confuse errands with leadership. You benefit from my guidance. Do not embarrass yourself. There are tones that once tangled my breath. This one landed. It did not settle. I saved it. It would matter later. I began with what belonged to me. Years ago, I had opened a family phone plan in a hurry. Lines multiplied like coat hangers. That morning, I removed every line but mine. Carrier systems are not instant. Some lines blinked off within minutes, others by early afternoon. Next came utilities. During a winter outage 2 years back, I had added my card for now. Now had stretched thin. I called remove my payment method and wrote each confirmation number in ink. Service would not stop that hour. It would lapse on the next cycle unless they arranged their own payments. That is what I wanted, a clean handover, not a spectacle. Messages arrived in waves as phones went dark. First confusion. Did you forget the bill? Then command. Fix this, then contempt. Rowan Petty, restore service. Sky, I had a brand call. I read them the way you study ice on a sidewalk. You notice you walk around that you do not fall. Casey texted from the market as if it were any day. Need anything? Yes, a reason not to waver. You already have one. You asked for peace. Peace costs. I made a paper list of subscriptions that had attached themselves to me by accident. A skincare box shipping to a door I did not live behind. A streaming bundle no one thanked me for. A club dues auto draft that required a form and a polite letter. I canceled saved copies and wrote the dates. Memory work came next, the kind that makes a person wince. We teach ourselves to forget small humiliations so we can sit at the table again. I remembered a Thanksgiving I hosted at a restaurant because tradition deserves a lift, and Rowan, correcting the server as if wine were a test I had failed. I remembered the shared cloud folder labeled household where I had tucked insurance PDFs and receipts. Over time, it grew a tangle of tabs I did not name. In one corner sat a sheet titled Event Gifts. Items marked delivered had never reached my door. I did not need to guess their path. Rowan liked to mint rules that sounded older than they were. Family money is strategy, not charity, he told me once at a memorial lunch, smoothing a tablecloth like he kept the world level. People who overvalue transparency do not understand trust. I learned slowly that people who fear light often keep their hands in other people's pockets. Late morning River wrote a message that began with apology and ended with help. I think I flashed the wrong folder at the gala. I panicked and closed it. If the board asks, I will say I dragged it by mistake. I also saved an activity log. The screenshots showed a shared drive trail withdrawals from the trust labeled in ways that did not match the beneficiaries. A boat weekend that matched a sunset photo. A lodge bill during a board retreat. A mortgage line with a memo about temporary smoothing. Evidence does not have to shout, it has to align. I forwarded the files to Sage. Duplicate and store offline, Sage replied. That afternoon, we backed up to a portable drive and wrote a simple chain in the ledger. Not for drama, for court if court came. At noon, I walked to the diner that still serves meatloaf like memory. The waitress topped my coffee without asking. A radio murmured a distant ball game. Two men argued gently about lake perch versus walleye. Life continued, which is the part that steadies me. Money trouble feels like an ending. The town keeps buying stamps. The mailbox held a glossy club newsletter with Rowan and a caption about stewardship. I set it on the counter. Stewardship without accountability is theater. Our family had been attending a long play. Afternoon brought the second wave. No confusion now, only performance. Rowan, you are not important enough to cause this. Reverse what you tinkered with before people notice. Sky, you ruined my call. A cousin typed in a private thread. We need to get Alex under control, forgetting. I still sat on that old list. Careless drafting reveals a person faster than any sermon. I did not answer. Instead, I opened the trust binder. The language was dry and kind, which is how my grandparent liked things. The backup trustee shall act when the primary trustee fails to act in the interest of the beneficiaries. People argue about failure, numbers do not. By late day, the sky turned into that steel blue the lake wears when it is thinking about weather. Casey came by with soup and a loaf with a good crust. How are you? Casey asked. Tired, relieved, uneasy with the quiet that comes when you stop explaining yourself. Quiet is where you get your judgment back, Casey said, rinsing bowls like we had only fixed a sticking hinge. You will need allies who do not need your money. You have them. I felt taller by an inch, not because anyone scolded me into a spine, but because I stopped bending. A note arrived from a community reporter. If you can document misuse tied to estate distributions or charitable optics, I will listen. The words were careful. The door was open. I did not rush. I looked at the ledger, the confirmations, the polite notices already sent. I thought of Pip at the library asking, "Are you safer now?" Safer is a direction, not a place. I faced that way. Before we go on a quick poll in my shoes, what would be your first firm line phone's utilities on the next cycle, or a short letter from counsel, share one sentence and your reason? Your comment might steady someone driving home right now. When the messages finally thinned, I underlined 3 lines in the trust about duty and care, and wrote the date. Big moments do not always look big. Sometimes they look like a kitchen table, a cheap pen, a friend washing a bowl and wind off the water moving a curtain. Comfort had been a story I told while paying for other people's choices. Discomfort for once felt like the start of my own. By evening, the Harbor Club's charitable circle looked like a polished shell. The lake put on its calm face, the one that lies about weather. 2 small cameras covered the room, one fixed on the lectern, one roaming. A red tally light winked. We were live to the club's donors at home. This was a club event, not the community foundations. Borrowed lights, borrowed attention, very public. Rowan took the podium with a practiced smile. To generosity, Rowan said, voice easy. Generosity that knows its place. The laugh that followed was thin. That phrase stretched across the room like wire. I felt it cinch, then I felt it fail too. At the AV table, River's cursor drifted through a cloud directory while lining up sponsor slides. For a breath, the big screen flashed a folder name that did not belong in a donor deck estate withdrawals taxes. A chart thumbnail flickered, then vanished as the logos returned. It was a glimpse, nothing more, still some people saw. Rooms remember flashes. The lectern mic left live between remarks caught Rowan's aside to a board friend pitched for one ear only. Alex needs to remember who keeps this family elegant. The sentence rolled straight into the live stream. Phones lit up on coffee tables across town. A marina neighbor texted me a screenshot. Was that meant to be public? I kept my hands on useful tasks. Straighten placards remind the quartet of their cue, open the balcony door to let the air move. Sage stood at check-in with the steady look of a courthouse clock. A message landed on my lock screen without me lifting the phone. You saw what you saw. Screenshot. Timeline tomorrow. The room is not your jury. I pocketed the instruction and obeyed it. A donor with river blue eyes and shoes made for walking board hallways pressed a folded cocktail napkin into my hand. On it, a law firm's name and direct number. Call in the morning, she said. Beneficiaries aren't allowances. She did not whisper. People nearby heard. The room's temperature dropped 1 degree toward winter. The livestream chat filled with polite question marks. Did they say generosity knows its place? Whose name is on the trust again? River's accidental flash had already been clipped by 2 neighborhood groups that trade recipes and, when needed, accountability. Screens keep receipts longer than table talk. Rowan found me by the balcony fire door, the quiet corner people use when they want to deliver orders. Stop embarrassing yourself, Rowan said in that slow schoolteacher cadence. Undo your little maneuvers. You do errands, you do not make decisions. Those words used to take my air. They did not tonight. I hear you, I said, not agreement, a record. Down on the dock, a halyard tapped metal. A boat horn called itself brave and bounced off warehouses. I opened the door a crack to let the cold air in. The sky was still blue. The lake did not know our names. My phone buzzed again, an email thread misaddressed and long. I did not read it in the doorway. I waited until I was tucked behind a column by the coat check noise covering the click of attachments. The thread ran back days. Rowan to a small list. Move the author royalties temporarily. Smooth the quarter. Alex loves temporary. A reply club sweep will be late unless we bridge. Another, put the boat weekend under event hospitality. Optics matter. I read the phrases twice to weld them into memory. Optics matter, so does law. Sage appeared with a bottle of water, and that look that means 2 things at once, sorry for me, focused on the work. I showed the first lines. Sage nodded once. Forward to the vault, then forward to me, keep headers. No edits. We moved like people who have worked the night shift. Slow enough to be right, fast enough to be safe. A neighbor who grows tomatoes in buckets intercepted me at the door. My nephew watches these club streams to feel fancy, she said, cheerful and blunt. We heard that line, folks are clipping it. You all right enough, I said. It was true enough for the stairs. At home, I set my keys in the tray, turned on the small lamp, and opened the thread on a larger screen. The dates on the withdrawal sheet matched a weekend Rowan had posted from a lakeside casino, glass of amber caption about earned rest. The trust debit time and the photo time matched within the hour. Another memo, temporary smoothing, sat beside the weak stone counters arrived and everyone noticed. Evidence does not need drama, it needs alignment. The archived Stream Club property donor only access was already clipped into neat segments. A colleague at the solar co-op sent a link with one line. Do you want me to flag this for someone? The clip held the toast the phrase about knowing one's place and the sideways remark about keeping the family elegant. I let it play once. I did not save it. Others would. My work was a different shape. I opened a blank document and titled it Tonight. Hot mic, slide flash, email thread, voice notes, witness names, law firm napkin. I added times, I saved and printed. Paper still calms me. Then I drafted 3 angry sentences I did not send, and 1 sentence I could defend in daylight. You asked for distance. I am honoring it in full. I sent that to the group thread and turned the phone face down. Voicemail blinked. Sky's voice first high furious. Your little experiment cost me a partnership call. Rowan's next measured false. You do not understand the complexity. You will back off. Then my parent, thin with fear. Please call. Something is happening with the accounts. I listened. I did not respond. Not silence is punishment, silence is policy. River texted again, apology tripping over itself. I dragged the wrong folder. I'm sorry, I saved the drive activity log if that helps. It does, I wrote back. Thank you for telling the truth, even by accident. People are rarely only one thing. Tonight, River was the revealer because a file slipped, also because River did not bury it. I set water to boil I did not drink. The kettle's soft hiss steadied me. I read the thread a second time this time, noting every addressee, every subject line, every attachment name. I saved copies to 2 places then to a portable drive. I wrote the steps in the ledger because paper slows you down just enough to catch your own mistakes. There's a strong temptation to make a speech in rooms that love speeches. I did not. The Harbor Club's stream would keep echoing through group texts on its own. Tomorrow would be for letters, forms, and dates clean work that does not trend the kind of work that holds up when the wind shifts. For those listening with the dog leash in one hand in that ballroom, would you have spoken into the microphone, or stepped into the night and built a file, say which and why? It helps someone who is standing by a door deciding. Before sleep, I stood by the window and watched the lighthouse throw its patient pattern across the breakwater. Patterns guide you home when the sky is dark. The lake kept its schedule. I kept mine. Morning would bring counsel, not confrontation. This was never about a clever line under chandeliers. It was always about paper timestamps and the quiet courage to stop explaining yourself. Morning was paperwork and still water. I opened the ledger. Step 1, I kept only my phone line. Others would wind down over the day. Step 2, I removed my cards from utilities. Service would lapse on the next cycle unless they added their own payment. Step 3, I closed the shared card, removed the add-on, and reported any later attempts as misuse. Step 4, with counsel. I initiated a proper trustee review letters to the custodian and probate counsel preservation notices to the community foundation and to relevant banks. I requested a pause on grants from our donor-advised fund pending verification. No theater, just process. Sage arrived with a portable drive. We copied bank statements, cloud logs, email headers, folders by month, 2 backups. River sent the shared drive activity log and a short note. I will confirm what I dragged on screen. Receipts, not speeches. Rowan's voice notes turned sharper. Return access. You exist because I tolerate you. I saved each one. I did not reply. A single email went to the family thread. I will no longer fund or manage your expenses. For trust matters, contact counsel. Door closed, latch set. Late day, I notified the Harbor Club's charitable circle that I would not comment on their stream and referred governance questions to their board. The club is separate from the foundation. Quiet, clean boundaries. Mid-story check if you were me. What is your first firm line phones utilities, next cycle, or letter from counsel? 1 sentence and why? At first light, I filed a trustee misconduct complaint and exhibits to the state, a packet to the district attorney, a notice to the trust custodian requesting an administrative hold on discretionary distributions pending court guidance. The Community Foundation acknowledged my advisory request and paused outgoing grants from our donor-advised fund while they verified use. The Harbor Club's charitable circle posted a brief live stream note. We are reviewing questions raised by viewers. Our board will cooperate with any inquiry. Separate lanes clearly marked. By midweek, investigators interviewed Rowan. The custodian confirmed a hold on non-mandatory payouts. The foundation issued a 1-paragraph statement about stewardship. Local news ran the hot mic clip next to a governance expert saying trust assets serve beneficiaries, not trustees. Calls arrived. My parents' voice was thin. We were wrong. Help us hire counsel. Sky raged about a lost brand call. Rowan tried a careful tone. Undo this. You are destroying your family. I answered evenly. I ended my subsidy. The law is addressing your choices. The Harbor Club board asked Rowan to step back from the charitable circle pending review. Our counsel opened restitution talks with the custodian's lawyers. Numbers have a way of ending arguments. Quick pulse in your town which shifts opinion faster. The board's statement or the hot mic tape? Tell me in a line. A season turned. Rowan accepted removal as trustee and signed a restitution plan to avoid trial. A professional fiduciary now manages the trust with quarterly reports I can read without bracing. Per my grandparents' margin notes, we redirected the dock lease income to a small library science scholarship at the neighborhood branch. The Community Foundation closed its pause and updated controls. The Harbor Club's charitable circle adopted clearer AV and conflict of interest rules. Sky took hourly work at the rehabbed mill. Tired, honest, better. Our parent downsized to a sunny place with fewer stairs. We speak briefly and kindly. At the solar co-op, we put panels on the old brick senior center. Sage photographed inverters lined like a choir. Casey brought a pie and did not ask for the story. On Saturday, Pip and I read by the aquarium at the library. Are you happy now? Pip asked. Happier, I said. Happy as weather. This is climate. What I know, love is help with an end date. Subsidy is a leash. Boundaries are riverbanks. They keep the water useful. Humiliation fades. Accountability holds. Closing CTA, would you forgive in this situation? Share your thoughts below. And if you want more true-to-life family reckonings or you want to send me yours, follow this channel. New stories each week. We talk them through with patience and clarity. Story 2. It was a Tuesday when my phone buzzed with a message, just 3 words. We all agreed. At first, I stared at the screen, unsure what it meant, yet my gut sank before my mind could catch up. A minute later, another text arrived from Mom. You're not welcome at the wedding. No punctuation, just that smug little dash she always used when she wanted to sound formal, a smirk in text form. I reread those words as though blinking harder might erase them. But they didn't change. This was Sarah's wedding, the very one I'd helped plan and paid for. I'd spent months dousing emotional flare-ups, consoling her breakdowns, booking every vendor she was too frazzled to manage. The same sister who just 2 weeks ago had called me her emotional rock as I wired another $100 to $500 for centerpieces that looked like Pinterest threw up on a florist. My name is Kyle, I'm 31. And until that fateful text, I thought I was doing something good holding this family together, when it always teetered on the brink of falling apart. I'm no millionaire. Far from it. But I've scrimped and saved, lived modestly, stayed single, socked money away while everyone else splurged and borrowed. For years, I believed that made me blessed and them unlucky. Turns out being the responsible one just makes you the family ATM with no overdraft protection. The wedding was supposed to be next Saturday, a beachside venue on the coast with a ridiculous ivory and gold theme my sister insisted was classy but looked more like a royal baby shower. I paid for half the venue deposit, booked the flights, even reserved the honeymoon suite in Cabo under my name because my mom's credit wasn't good enough to secure the reservation, and now I wasn't welcome. I didn't respond to the message. I didn't need to. Instead, I opened my laptop and quietly logged into the travel portal I'd used for the honeymoon flights, 2 round-trip tickets, business class. Under my email, I clicked cancel and watched the screen blink for a second before the $3,800 refund notification popped up. Then I went into my savings account and initiated a transfer $6,500, the exact amount I'd wired to my mom last month for what she claimed was wedding overflow costs. I didn't say a word to anyone. Just watched the numbers move. I felt nothing, not anger, not even sadness. Just a strange sort of calm, like I'd been holding my breath for years, and finally exhaled. The first call came at 8:17 p.m. It was my sister. I let it ring. Then came my cousin. Then my uncle. Then Mom. I turned off notifications and went about my night reheating leftovers and watching a documentary. I didn't absorb a second of my morning. There were 23 missed calls for voicemails and a single message that made my hand go cold. Please call me. It's that stopped me. My dad usually stays out of the shit chaos. He's a quiet man, the kind who'd rather tinker with a busted coffee maker than get involved in family drama. When I was a kid, I used to think he didn't care. As I got older, I realized it wasn't that he just picked his battles carefully. And for him to step into this one, something was off. But before I could process it, the voicemail started playing in my head, echoing, even though I hadn't hit play. I imagined Sarah's whiny tone, Mom's theatrical sobbing, maybe a guilt-laced message from an aunt who hadn't texted me in 2 years. I wanted to delete them all. I really did, but that one message from Dad lingered. This didn't come out of nowhere. It started small. A sideways comment here, a joke there. Last Christmas, Mom said, well, at least Sarah will give us grandkids. Not everyone could say that at the time. I laughed it off. I've never wanted kids, and I'm okay with that. But it stung in a way I didn't admit. Then during Sarah's engagement dinner, I noticed I wasn't seated at the main table just to keep things even, Mom had said. But my younger cousin's boyfriend, who had only been around for 3 months, was seated next to the groom. I swallowed that one too. Like always, they were always little paper cuts, never big enough to justify a confrontation, until suddenly they were. After Sarah got engaged, everything became an emergency. Mom called me in a panic over cake samples. Sarah had meltdowns about bridesmaid dresses, and I was expected to cover whatever the groom's family didn't. And I did because I thought helping meant belonging. I thought showing up with my wallet was how I proved I mattered, but it never bought me a seat. It just made me the unpaid intern of their fantasy wedding. And now I wasn't even invited. I sat on the edge of my bed that morning, my laptop still open, the email confirmation of the canceled flights glowing like a quiet middle finger. I scrolled through the missed calls, each name a little louder than the last. Then I got to the message from Dad. Just 6 words. You need to see this now. That's when my stomach dropped. I stared at the message from Dad, my thumb hovering over the screen. You need to see this now. 6 words, but they carried the weight of something heavier than guilt. My father has always been a man of few words, but every one of them is measured. He's not dramatic like Mom, not manipulative like Sarah, and definitely not the type to panic. So if you said I needed to see something, it wasn't going to be another teary voicemail or passive-aggressive family group chat post. I called him. He picked up before the second ring. Kyle, he said, voice low. You got a minute? Yeah, I said. And suddenly my mouth was dry. What's going on? There was a pause. I could hear the muffled thrum of a television in the background. Then the volume clicked off. I didn't know they were going to do that. Your mom and your sister. I just found out this morning after they locked down the seating chart and made the announcement in the family group chat. I'm not even in the group chat. I muttered more to myself than him. I know, he replied quietly. That's part of it. Another pause, then he said, Kyle, they told everyone you chose not to come. That hit me harder than I expected. I blinked, trying to make sense of it. What, they said you were pulling one of your loner stunts, that you got upset over something minor and backed out. Sarah told the family you were always a bit dramatic, and this time you went too far, that you didn't want to be there. I laughed, sharp, bitter, humorless. So they kicked me out and made it my decision. Worse, he said. Your mom said you threatened to ruin the wedding if you came. That knocked the breath out of me. What Dad sighed. Like you didn't want to be the one saying this. She told Sarah's in-laws you were emotionally unstable, still bitter about being single, and that you were jealous of your sister's happy ending. Said you were making everything about you, like usual. Like usual. My voice cracked. I had to stand up. My apartment suddenly felt like it was shrinking. I know, son, Dad said quickly. I know that's not who you are. I've watched you pick up every piece they dropped. You handled that entire engagement party and no one thanked you. You paid off Mom's second credit card last summer without saying a word. You showed up every time. They didn't. But they don't see that. Or maybe they do, and it threatens them. I leaned against the kitchen counter, my hands shaking. So this whole thing, this exile, was a setup to make me the bad guy. Dad hesitated. Then with an exhale said, it's worse than that. They already started telling people you refused to fund the honeymoon out of spite. That's when I knew something had changed in me. Something broke, but not in the way I thought it would. I wasn't hurt anymore. I wasn't even angry. I felt detached, cold, Like I was watching a rerun of a show I used to care about, but now knew all the plot twists too. They took the money. Dad, I said flatly. $6,500, wired to Mom's account for the honeymoon. I canceled the flights last night. The refund's already back in my account. He was silent for a moment, then softly. Good. It was the first time in years my father had supported one of my decisions that openly. He wasn't a man of grand gestures, but that one word meant everything. Then he added that there's something else I wasn't going to tell you, but I think you need to see it. I heard rustling on the other end, then the ping of a message coming through. I opened my phone. It was a screenshot. A group chat. Mom, Sarah, and a few of the aunts. My name was mentioned in the thread. Mom texted. Don't worry about Kyle. He's just sensitive because no one's ever loved him enough to marry him. I'll talk to him after the wedding. Once he realizes how childish he's being, Sarah texted. He's a ghost. Let him fade. Just need to make sure he doesn't embarrass us. And Cheryl texted. So we're agreed. No +1 for him. Even if he begs. Mom texted. Exactly. No seat, no speech, no drama. He'll get over it. He always does. I read the messages twice, then a third time, and then I deleted them. Not out of denial, but because I didn't need to see them again to know the truth. I'd always been an outsider in my own family. The helper, the fixer, the invisible glue. The glue doesn't get a seat at the table. It just holds everything else together while it cracks. And they were right about one thing. I wasn't going to beg that evening. I sat down and began making a list not of people to confront, but of systems to dismantle. They wanted me to fade quietly, but they'd forgotten something. I was the one holding the strings. The joint Costco membership with Mom canceled. The Hulu, Netflix, Disney Plus family plans removed their profiles. The auto payments I'd been quietly making on Sarah's student loan disabled. And the best part, the vineyard deposit for the wedding. Still under my name. Technically, I was the primary contract holder. They never paid me back for that check. I wrote to lock in the date. I've been meaning to deal with that paperwork later. Now it was at the top of my list as I stared at the contract hovering over the cancel reservation option. I smiled for the first time that day because if they thought I was dramatic before they hadn't seen anything yet. By Wednesday morning, the silence from my end had them spiraling. The voicemails went from passive-aggressive to desperate. Sarah's tone morphed with every message, first annoyed, then pleading. Kyle, can we talk? I think there's been a huge misunderstanding. Mom didn't mean it that way. I didn't respond. I listened with my arms crossed, each new message only confirming what I already knew. They were trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube, and it was far too late for that. But I wasn't interested in revenge for the sake of ego. This wasn't about lashing out. This was about letting go and making sure they felt it. That afternoon, I sat down with a black notebook and started writing out every account, every auto payment, every password-protected bill. I had my name attached to. I wasn't dramatic. I was thorough. The irony. They called me the cold one, the robot, the one who didn't feel things like the rest of us. They were right in a way. I didn't blow up. I didn't scream. I calculated. I logged in Mom's phone plan, which I've been paying for since 2019 when she got laid off. Suspended. She wouldn't even notice until she tried to make a call during her hair trial on Friday. Sarah's Venmo, which was connected to my bank as a backup card from when she overdrafted 3 times during college and never figured out how to remove it, unlinked. And then I reported the suspicious charges on my account just for fun. Fraud protection is a beautiful thing. By Thursday morning, I had an email from the wedding venue, a polite but firm confirmation. Your cancellation request has been received per the contract. Your deposit will be forfeited unless a replacement booking is secured. I smiled. Let them explain that to the 118 guests flying in for a Saturday ceremony that suddenly didn't have a legal reservation. Around noon, my cousin Mark called. He's the only one who ever treated me like a person, not a tool. His voice was tired. Kyle? What's happening? I didn't lie. I'm done funding a family that sees me as a wallet with legs. He sighed. They're freaking out. Good. Sarah's having a meltdown. She's saying you're ruining her marriage. I gave a dry laugh. If a canceled flight and a frozen honeymoon fund ruins a marriage, maybe it wasn't built to last. You didn't argue. You just said. I wish you told me sooner. I always knew they leaned on you too much. That night I opened my laptop again and logged into my dad's old Dropbox account, the one we used when I helped him digitize all the family records a few years back. Inside was a goldmine of scanned receipts, emails, even the original invoice from the engagement party that I paid for. But Mom conveniently forgot I covered. I created a new Google Drive folder, uploaded everything entitled It, Contributions from Kyle Nobody Wanted. Then I copied the link and sent it to every family member on the group thread. I didn't write a caption. I didn't need one. Less than 5 minutes later, I was kicked out of the family chat. Perfect. But the real turn came Friday morning, the day before the wedding. I was sipping coffee and enjoying the quiet when I got an email from the groom's mother, Linda. We'd met once. She was kind, poised, and very by the book, the kind of woman who kept her silverware aligned and said darling instead of sweetie. Her message was short, but it rattled me more than any voicemail subject. Concern about the wedding, Kyle? I wanted to reach out directly. I've heard bits and pieces about what's going on, and quite frankly, I'm alarmed. If you have a moment, could we speak? I feel like I'm missing some very important information. Best Linda. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just family gossip anymore. This was a thread unraveling from both ends. I called her. She answered immediately. Thank you for calling, she said, formal but with an edge of concern. I don't mean to overstep, but my son just informed me that the venue may have been canceled. It was, I said plainly. I paid the deposit. It was under my name. She was quiet for a second. That's not what we were told. I'm sure. Another pause. She cleared her throat. Kyle, I don't know what's been said, but I was told you declined to come. That you'd backed out because you were bitter. I let the silence hang. then asked, do bitter people usually pay for floral arrangements? The wedding cake, the DJ, and half the venue. Linda inhaled sharply. I was unaware of any of that. Of course you were. They needed someone to blame when I pulled out, and when I stopped funding it, they made sure to do what they always do. Point the finger at me, her voice lowered. I understand now why you've distanced yourself. I would have to. But Kyle, there's something you should know. Sarah. She opened a joint credit card with your mom last week, and she used your name on the application. I froze what they claimed you co-signed. My husband caught it when we reviewed the final expenses. He recognized your name on the paperwork. That was it. That was the part that changed everything. I wasn't just the family ATM anymore. I was a target. I sat there, my coffee suddenly cold in my hand, the room closing in around me as Linda's words echoed in my ear. They claimed you co-signed. I hadn't. Not even close. I've always been careful about credit. Guarded. Even after watching mom default on a car loan in my early 20s and drag her credit into the basement with mine tethered behind it. Because yes, she had convinced me to co-sign that I'd spent the better part of a decade fixing my financial reputation. I knew better. I hadn't signed anything for this wedding outside of what I paid for directly. Do you have a copy of the application? I asked Linda. My voice calm but clipped. I do, she said. Would you like me to send it to you immediately, please? A few minutes later, it landed in my inbox. There it was staring back at me. An application for a high-limit wedding credit card with a forged digital signature. My name, address, social security number, even my old work email probably lifted from tax forms or bank records they still had lying around. I didn't feel rage, I didn't feel sad. I felt clear. All these years I'd been the fallback plan, the fixer, the silent financier. But forging my name, that wasn't desperation, that was entitlement soaked in fraud. That was theft. And it was the final straw. I filed a fraud report with a credit card company, took screenshots of every detail. Then I filed a police report. I attached the documentation, the forged application, and a notarized statement of non-consent. Then I picked up my phone, and for the first time since mom's smug message that started all this, I called her. She answered on the second ring like she'd been waiting. Kyle, she said, her voice overly tearful. I was just about to call you. I stopped. I said flat. I just want to hear it from you. Did you sign my name on a credit card application? Silence. Kyle, you're being ridiculous. That was just a backup. In case the honeymoon ran over. You know how these things go. Did you sign my name? A long pause. Then Sarah said, you would have done it if you knew it was important. I let that hang there like a guillotine. That's not an answer. I said, my voice cold, but it's fine. You can explain it to the investigator when they call. That cracked her mask. What, are you serious, Kyle? We're family. You're really going to make this ugly over a little misunderstanding, Mom? I said, cutting her off. You kicked me out of a wedding I paid for. Lied to everyone about it and committed fraud in my name. I didn't make this ugly. You did. I'm just putting it in the light where it belongs. Kyle, honey, please, we can fix this. I hung up. That evening I drove to my dad's place. He was waiting for me on the porch with 2 beers and that silent weather look he always wore when things got heavy. You okay? He asked as I sat beside him. I nodded slowly, getting there. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. You just handed me the beer, and we watched the sun dip below the trees. Eventually, he said you did the right thing. And somehow that meant more than anything. The fallout came fast. First came the phone calls from family, my aunts, my cousins, even Uncle Greg, who hadn't spoken to me since 2002. They all wanted to know what was really going on, why the wedding was off, why Sarah had posted a cryptic Instagram story about being betrayed by blood. I didn't respond. Then came the texts, the apologies, the guilt trips. Kyle, I had no idea. We should have stood up for you. Can we please talk? But I was done being there. Emotional janitor. I let the calls go to voicemail, but the texts sit unread. As for the wedding, it never happened. With the venue canceled and no backup secured. They tried to pivot to a backyard ceremony, but the guests were confused. Some turned around mid-flight, and the groom's family, having learned about the forged credit card, called the whole thing off. Apparently, financial fraud before the vows isn't a great look. Sarah went on a posting spree. Cryptic stories, Bible verses, passive-aggressive quotes about snakes in the grass and family who turns their back on you. I didn't flinch. Because here's the thing. Sometimes the best revenge isn't a dramatic confrontation. It's not yelling or exposing someone in front of a crowd. Sometimes it's just clarity, quietly dismantling the system that took you for granted. Walking away while the whole rotten house collapses behind you. About a week later, I got a final message from Mom. You've made your point. We're all hurting. You didn't have to go this far. I didn't reply. Instead, I changed my number. I took a few days off work and booked a trip solo. Just me and my laptop on the same resort Sarah was supposed to honeymoon at. Funny thing about being the one who booked everything under your name? You know the cancellation policies. I changed the dates, upgraded the suite, took her champagne package and added it to my reservation. And I sat on that balcony, drink and hand waves rolling beneath me, thinking about how long I'd waited for someone to see me. But I finally saw myself. Not the version they needed me to be, not the fixer, not the bank account, just Kyle 31. Free. And finally done trying to earn love. I never owed them in the first place. I don't know if they'll ever really understand what they lost, but I do. And I'm not giving it back.